Good morning. Let's begin with a poem by David Budbill. It's one I'm sure you've heard before. I love to tell it or read it. It's called Bugs in a Bowl. Make it. Han Shan, that great and crazy, wonder-filled Chinese poet of 1,000 years ago, said, "We're just like bugs in a bowl, all day going around, never leaving their bowl." I say that's right. Every day climbing up the steep sides, sliding back over and over again, around and around, up and back down. Sit in the bottom of the bowl, head in your hands, cry, moan, feel sorry for yourself. Or look around. See your fellow bugs. Walk around. Say, "Hey, how are you doing?" Say, "Nice bowl, nice bowl." Anyhow, good morning. I'm Richard Schramm, the service coordinator, your guide to today's service. How are you doing? Nice bowl. Welcome to this caring, sharing community on this frosty Sunday, February 18th. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you come from, we welcome you. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Welcome to the North Chapel, where we aspire to be a congregation that nurtures the growth and supports the needs of its members, sustains a strong spiritual life within a loving church community, and seeks to have a positive impact on the world around us. That's the mission of our church here. A special welcome to those who are visiting. If you're visiting and you like, can you tell us your name and where you're from? Anybody willing to do that? I don't see too many new faces, but if you are a visitor, please sign the guest book in the back of the sanctuary and turn off your cell phones. And Tatum is here to be with the children when they go out for their spiritual exploration time. Announcements. Here's an important announcement. Next week, the North Chapel's Social Justice Committee will be showing the film Seeing Through the Wall, Meeting Ourselves in Palestine and Israel. It's a film that Andy Sood made, and Dove Taylor, Rabbi Dove Taylor, will be here with Ann to talk about the film afterwards. And the point of it is they're offering this event, which has food, by the way. Ken Woodhead will be here making soup, and there'll be time for a little bite to eat, a chance to sit together, watch the film, and have a discussion afterwards. They are offering this event with the hope that what we will see and hear, both in the film and in the discussion, will give us a deeper understanding of what is happening now in Israel and Palestine. So that's next week after the service. Are there any other announcements from the floor? There will be coffee hour downstairs with some goodies, I imagine.
Soup.
With soup today? Oh, good. Is this Ken again? So Ken Woodhead is providing soup after the service downstairs. See the order of service for other announcements, please. Our minister, Leon Dunkley, is on sabbatic for the next few months. In his absence, Gwen Groff will be providing pastoral care. If you'd like to talk with her, and she's a wonderful person to talk with, contact Joanne Boyle, the church administrator, to set up an appointment. Our speaker today is Marta Ceroni. She is a dance, she's lots of things, she's amazing. She's a dance instructor, community cultivator, think about that, and the co-director of the Academy for Systems Change, an organization dedicated to supporting groups and individuals working on social transformation. Marta is also a facilitator of Telling My Story, convening spaces for storytelling and the arts to build trust and connection across differences. So we have Marta and her reflection to look forward to. Marta's reflection today is entitled Intimacy, Feeling into the Sacred Space Between Us. She writes, this reflection is sparked by a desire and a curiosity of inquiring into the feeling of intimacy in a community context. What does it mean at times of intensity and division to venture into the sacred space that exists between oneself and the other, in romantic partnerships and in community? I look forward to this reflection. I'm already drawn to the idea of a sacred space that exists between oneself and the other. A little collective puzzling about this sacred space would be a good warm-up for her talk, like a little stretching before taking a run. This space is, of course, shaped by who the other is and by one's understanding of why they are in relationship. I'm particularly interested where that space may be characterized as intimate or loving. So for me, here are a few of the understandings that can shape that space. At some level, they may all be the same. They help me think about the idea of sacred space between myself and the other. So I'm going to kind of do a warm-up of my thoughts about this, and then during the meditation, I'm going to encourage you to do the same for yourself. What do you think the sacred space is between yourself and the other? A space that's potentially a place of intimacy and love. So here are a few of those understandings that can shape that space. First, to know and be known. In his book, Passionate Marriage, David Snarsh studied long-term and successful marriages and found that they were guided not by validating one another or rescuing one another, not by pleasing one another, but by wanting to be known and to know one another, to share our true, authentic selves with the other, to be vulnerable with one another. So that's his characterization of what that sacred space could be in a long-term, lasting, and loving relationship. This also reminds me of the difference between discussion and dialogue. By way of contrast, discussions often focus on saying the right thing, debates on winning the argument, solving problems, while dialogue focuses on seeking to understand what the other is saying, who the other is. I think to know and be known may be described as to see and be seen. I once engaged in an it was quite awkward, but powerful exercise of walking around a room, finding someone I didn't know, and gulp, staring into their eyes for 60 seconds. I don't know if you've ever done this. It's very emotionally difficult. With one person looking into her eyes, to my surprise, she began to cry. I didn't take it personally, but I wondered later if she might have felt truly seen by another where this wasn't happening in the rest of her life. That just someone looking in her eyes was something unusual for her and sparked a kind of sad reaction. Rilke speaks of seeing one another. He writes, once the realization is accepted that even between the closest human beings, infinite distances continue, a wonderful living side by side can grow if they succeed in loving the distance between them, which makes it possible for each to see the other whole against the sky, which makes it possible for each to see the other whole against the sky. To listen and be heard is another way for me to think of this space between us. Gwen Groff recently shared this reading by Douglas Steer. To listen another soul into a condition of disclosure and discovery may be almost the greatest service that any human being ever performs for another. Think about the power of active listening and how that can shape the space between you and another. I think as well as what happens between us in Amazing Grace or covenant groups. Here's how we try to shape the space between us in Amazing Grace. We agree to create an environment of safety and trust, to provide a time of quiet and solitude, as well as a time of sharing, to speak from our own experience, to listen to others with our hearts without judgment, discussion, dialogue, question asking, problem solving, or fixing, and to treat everything as confidential. So in covenant groups and Amazing Grace, and also in this new group to Listening to Our Lives, the idea is to create a space where one can listen actively to the stories and concerns of others without judging. And it reminded me of the New Yorker cartoon, which some of you have heard me talk about, where one woman says to another, "How can we be friends if I can't fix you?" And I think there's a lot of truth in that. And finally, this coming together to witness and be witnessed, to just be present to another, to notice how that presence affects oneself and perhaps the other. And yeah, with this warm-up stretching exercise, I encourage everyone to use this meditation that's coming up to think what the sacred space that exists between oneself and the other means to each of us.
So excited to be here, actually. I was driving up and I was feeling emboldened, if you will, both in a nervous and excited way. Because my reflection will be in two parts. The first part I'll share a bit more, and the second part will be an activity. And so I felt that we might experience something a little bit daring today, and so I was a little bit nervous about that. But I feel this is a space that welcomes really anyone at a very deep level, and I feel it's a beautiful space where to take more risk with you all. So I'm going to mostly read, also for conciseness, and given that my English is not my first language, so I'll be reading. A friend of a friend, who I'm going to call Kay, was going through a difficult time after surgery and needed some help. I barely knew Kay. She was in her late 60s when I met her. She lived in a multi-floor building and kept the door of her apartment unlocked. I'm like the bee queen here, she once told me with her luminous pride. Kids would stop by after school, teenagers would confess their secret loves and heartaches to her. Kay had been addicted to different substances through her life, and she was in the process of rebuilding her relationship with her children. But for that time, and for a long part of her life, this beehive had been her family. One day, my help took the form of emptying drawers, sorting through her clothing, folding things that she deemed worth keeping. Hey Kay, this skirt's gonna look very good on you when you're gonna be able to walk again. Hey Kay, should we keep these shorts? Oh, okay, well, we'll keep them, okay. What about these underpants? Oh, they don't fit you anymore. Okay. What? Donate them? You'd be surprised, I was told. Speaking of intimacy, or intimacy, as you say here. I'm paying attention these days to the ways that we each create or enter spaces of vulnerability and intimacy with consent and with an openness to be changed by this experience, whether we are invited or we are inviting into these spaces. The act of caring for another is one portal to intimacy, whether it's romantic caring, neighborly caring, community caring. And you might be surprised to hear me use the word intimacy in the context of community. Intimacy is normally associated with romantic partnership or a family setting after all. But at a time of intensity and divisions, a time of witnessing horrors and injustices from afar, I ask myself what exists at the other end of the spectrum of the human experience. I find myself eager to experience something different. I feel drawn towards closeness and proximity, searching for true intimacy, which we experience when we feel safe, we feel seen in our full dignity, when we feel that we fully belong. Intimacy implies closeness, proximity, and it naturally brings up for me a notion of space. That space, that distance between me and you. Some of us love to hear, me included, that we are all interconnected and that we are one. And sometimes, some rare, beautiful times, we might be blessed and have a glimpse of that. But for the most part, it's been my experience that feeling of interconnectedness and of being one isn't easy to access. I met once a man at a dance and movement workshop who shared that he had tried everything to feel one with self, with nature, and with other fellow humans. He had tried fasting, contemplation in solitude, special mushrooms, somehow never succeeding. But instead of trying to feel one with you, or going to the abstract level of the whole humankind, I want to be discerning and feel where me ends and where you begins. Paying attention to the space that exists between you and me, this space. A space and a place that I feel is sacred and others have called sacred because it's neither you or me. And it's not us combined. It's a space that reveals itself when I can simultaneously be present to myself and to you. When I can be aware of my own needs, desires, wants, and be curious and attentive to yours without sacrificing and invalidating either of our own experiences. One of the things that I find most difficult is to keep that space between you and me clear. Clear of my own or others' perceptions, expectations, fears. It's a place that wants tending, and if left untended, it can be confusing, harmful even. In a romantic relationship, I experienced codependency, and I literally couldn't figure out anymore what in that relationship was mine and of my own choice. It took me some time to regain a sense of myself. And for some time, I have been carrying with me a quartz, a little quartz, everywhere I went. It was given to me by an American friend who lived in Switzerland and who was a water scientist. She said to me that the way that tap water travels through the pipes under pressure causes water molecules to be in a state of agitation. By placing that quartz in a glass of tap water, the water molecules reorder themselves And that is a much better water for you than an unorderly water, supposedly. What would it be like if the space between you and me was filled with still, clear, orderly water? Author and spiritual leader Sherry Mitchell of the Penobscot Nation writes beautifully in her book Sacred Instructions about the work involved in intimacy and about its transformational potential or power, leading to what she calls ecstasy in a mystic, transcending sense. There is a prayer in Sherry Mitchell's book called Prayer for Healing and Openness that I've read over and over to myself in recent years, and I'd like to share an excerpt from that prayer with you. I seek to become a willing vessel and to be open, or to open my heart completely to those whom fate has drawn toward me. Allow me to see them not through the obscured vision of my own wounding or the defensive shelter created by theirs, but with the clarity of vision that can reveal their souls to me. Give me the strength to remain seated in this pursuit beyond the levels of my own discomfort and fear, so that I may become the boundless being that you have created me to be, capable of embracing all life, and capable of giving and receiving all of the love that the Divine Spirit holds for me. I love things, and I love movement, and I always look for ways to engage the body and our senses. To me, inviting the body is essential. That space between you and me, you and the person next to you, is the space between two bodies, primarily. The experience of intimacy is primarily located in the body. It's like when you go to a restaurant and the whole ambience makes you say, it's cozy here. You feel it. It's something that relaxes you and you experience comfort. And of course, we don't have to feel cozy or comfortable with one another all the time. It is inevitable to feel discomfort, disconnect, numbness at times. So speaking of body, I would like to propose an activity that will help us create an experience of intimacy here in this space. It comes from the work of authentic movement, and I don't know if some of you have engaged in that tradition of work with body and therapy. It's a dance therapy practice, and I'd be happy to share more about this practice after service if we have a little time, and I'm flexible and I'll be here. And this practice can be very profound, especially over time. And today we're just gonna, with your own consent and permission, we're gonna just scratch the surface of that. So I'm gonna go into instruction mode here. I'm just gonna move probably here so that you can see actually my body. So the activity, can you hear me okay? The activity is done in pairs and it involves a mover and a witness. So one person moves and the other witnesses the movement of the person who's moving. And the witness will hold this person without judgment or interpretation. Each person experiences both roles. So the mover has their eyes closed. And we're gonna do this by just sitting where we are. So this shouldn't involve moving around too much at all, I don't think. So the mover has the eyes closed, and after a moment of centering in themselves, they really reach for a movement in their body that wants to come out and emerge. And that movement can be small, visible, or invisible. It can be tiny. It can be you're moving your toes in your shoes and nobody sees them, and that's totally fine. And so you can also decide to stay still and actually take a moment to yourself to relax. And so you'll be witness in that relaxation moment. So while the mover
moves with their eyes closed. The witness keeps their eyes open. And in silence, both of them will be in silence. The witness brings a quality of attention, so pays attention to the other person, not so much like looking at the other person, but rather taking in the whole experience in front of themselves, of the mover moving. And at the same time, I'll be asking that the witness will also pay attention to their own experience, what's happening inside of themselves as they witness someone else in a vulnerable moment, to be honest, move. So this will go on for 2 minutes, so that one person will be the mover, the other person will be the witness, and then the roles will be reversed, and there's not going to be any talking as we reverse roles. And then, so in that case, whoever was the mover first then becomes the witness, and vice versa. And after each person has gone as a mover and a witness, the two people will have 2 minutes to just connect and express what they felt. Speaking from the first person, their own experience inside of what happened as they witnessed or as they moved. And there's going to be only 2 minutes total. So the purpose here is not to have a conversation, but again, like we were discussing earlier in the service, listening to one another and being listened to. So there will be more time to share after service if anyone of you is interested. And I'll be making a little sound, I think, with the ball here to indicate the passing of the 2 minutes. So I'll be pretty fierce with time management here because the purpose is to get through this in a gentle, light touch way without getting stuck too much in things. And I will share with you also a reminder, so what comes next, so you have to keep track. And you will not be visible on camera. So I think it's facing this way. So, last piece of instruction before we start. So, I will ask you in a moment to turn to a person next to you or behind you or to the back of you. Ideally, we do this by remaining seated, so not much moving around. Some folks are seated in a position or location that doesn't make it very easy for them to partner. So in those cases, or in cases you don't want to partner up at all, you can be a solo mover or a solo witness. So you be a mover within the collective, so paying attention to you in relationship to the collective. Or if you're a solo witness, you will be a witness of the whole experience in relationship to the whole sanctuary and community here, which will be different. But I think it's going to be great to have some of these solo witnesses, if you will. And if we don't have them, it's okay. But just to enrich the experience. Lastly, if anything comes up for you that somehow needs adjustment, just feel free to make adjustments, meaning pausing, stopping the activity altogether, relocating, or any of the above. And I know that this is not a space designed for movement, but we're going to be a little disruptive here and using that respect. Okay, so I think that is all. I'm going to just invite you to find a partner. Find a partner. We are at 2 minutes. So let's join back and take a moment to just let that experience go for the time being and honor what it was, whatever it was, however it felt. And I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for being daring with me, taking some risks with your pairs, being vulnerable, and doing that in community and in this sacred space, indeed. So I just want to wish you well, and I want to deeply thank you for taking risks. It felt risk-taking for me as well. So